Replacement windows, not in your budget this year? Well, what if you could save 20%? Renewal by Andersen, full-service replacement window division of Andersen, are putting windows back in your budget with this exclusive podcast-only offer. You know how much I love this and what a difference it makes. You owe it to yourself, people. You save 20% on windows, 20% on patio doors, an additional $20 on every window. Don't settle for low-end vinyl windows. Renewal by Andersen's composite Fibrex window material is 2 times stronger than vinyl, and you can save 20% on windows and patio doors, plus an additional $20 off each and every window with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. The air conditioning works better. It's so much quieter. The heater's better. Everything is better. Dust is down. So for a free renewal by Andersen Windows Diagnosis, call 1-800-406-8700. Again, 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. Dawson.
Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
We interrupt this program to bring you Vikings Vent Line, the one show where you get to react to how the Purple played right away. Call in now with your thoughts on the game. 651-646-8255. This is Vikings Vent Line.
From the 3. Little shovel to Kamara, and he will bend his way into the end zone for a touchdown. Yeah, they throw it the 3rd most in the league on a percentage basis. And that's passed off at the 44-yard line by P.J. Williams, uncontested to the end zone.
All right. Red Sox, congratulations. Finally, something great happens to Boston sports, by the way. They just won the World Series over the Dodgers. In case you're listening on AM 1500 or the stream, we are now live on Vikings Vent Line here. And thank you to our Twitter/Periscope viewers for sticking with us through this transition. That's Manny Hill. I'm Phil Mackey, Jonathan Harrison on the phones. And we have one open phone line right now. One open phone line, 651-646-8255, 877-615-1500. Lucky's 13 Pubs powers Vikings Vent Line on a weekly basis, Manny. Let's get right to the calls.
Yeah,
if you want to hear our opening thoughts, go back and watch the Periscope/Twitter video, and no, we'll chime in plenty here because I know some people are listening on demand as well, so you'll get plenty of our thoughts. We have open phone lines, full phone lines, but open once people drop off. Let's start with Kimo in Honolulu. Kimo, what's going on, man? What did you see in this? Let's call it a pretty disappointing buzzkill loss for the Vikings at home on national TV.
Hey guys, hey, what's up? How's it? Aloha. Hey, at least the Packers lost today, huh? Look on the bright side. I don't know what was worse. I don't know if it was them shooting themselves in the foot or if they just flat out lost, but they were just terrible today. Horrible day.
Yeah, I mean, it was. They showed you early on, toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the NFL again, and Kirk Cousins making throws all over the field to Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. The Thielen fumble, I mean, Thielen has carried this offense in so many ways this year, and again, I believe he went well over 100 yards here in garbage time there, so he breaks the NFL record for consecutive 100-yard games, and he's going to put up all-time numbers, at least from a Viking standpoint. Yeah, he had 103 yards on 7 catches, but that fumble was because they were driving to go up maybe by 10 points. Yeah. He fumbles, and now all of a sudden the entire game changes, and that wasn't a wrap because they had a couple other chances and then they made some more mistakes. But man, for them to be maybe driving to go up by 10 points and to be losing at that point going into halftime was tough to swallow.
It really changed the entire landscape of the game because, as we were just talking about on Periscope before we went live on the air here, that you're in a position to go up 20 to 10 at the half, and Thielen fumbles, and it almost just took the air right out of the building. And the next thing you know, you look up, it's a 14-point swing because you're down 17 to 13 at the half instead of potentially being up 20 to 10. So I mean that completely changed the game. And then You had more mistakes in the second half. The pick six that was a lot more on Stephon Diggs than it was on Kirk Cousins. But I think you're kind of seeing with this offense that when the protection is good, which it hasn't always been, obviously, we know the issues with this offensive line. When the protection is good, Kirk Cousins and these receivers thrive. They are an unstoppable offense when the protection is good. But I feel like sometimes when the protection isn't perfect or when it's, when it breaks down a little bit, Kirk Cousins doesn't, that's the one thing I think that's missing from him as a quarterback, is that he just doesn't really know how to instinctively make something happen when the bleep hits the fan in terms of protection and guys not running perfect routes and things like that. And look, he's good. And overall, he's been really good. But I just worry that that's going to be something that prevents this team from going to the next level.
You know how sometimes a perfectly good computer will just go blue screen on you once in a while? That's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Where you're going along and you're browsing and you've got a few windows open and you got a couple of different software things. All of a sudden, boom, perfectly good computer
Crash.
goes, or when your smartphone goes from 30% to zero battery, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. His brain short circuits a couple times per game. I don't think it was a mistake to sign him. I think he has given you at times some of the best quarterback play you've seen since 2009 Brett Favre. Mm-hmm. Now it's a franchise where we most of the time have our quarterback beer goggles on. So I wouldn't change anything, but it's just, I guess, interesting to observe some of the reasons why Washington fans and some of the players in that locker room looked at Kirk a little sideways once in a while. That that fumbling problem is a thing, and there's another tipped pass. Okay, I wonder what that's all about. We're seeing all these things come to fruition.
Well, and we saw it when he had the apparently it was called a fumble. And then they reviewed it, and it was, obviously he was down. His knee was down before the ball came out. But you kind of look at that play, and you're just kind of wondering, okay, yeah, he was down. It ended up not being a fumble. But you're kind of watching that play, and you're like, what is he doing? He looked like he was really indecisive on, was he going to take off and run? Was he going to throw the ball away? Was he going to try and keep his eyes down the field and try and find a receiver that might have, gotten open or something? It just looked like he was really indecisive on what he wanted to do on that play, and ended up being a sack.
A guy who's always decisive is Randy in Oakland. Realistic Randy, the floor is yours on Vent Line.
Well, make no mistake about it. I actually came into this game expecting the Vikings to lose, and with all the years of heartbreak and new ways that this team finds to lose games, I pretty much don't have the energy to get as fired up anymore. I would say I think I've gotten a little bit better. I'm not mad that Dan Bailey missed the extra point. And for all intents and purposes, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen cost us that game today. Let's just call it what it is. Their 2 turnovers resulted in 14 points for the Saints. The defense, quite honestly, for the Vikings, they only really gave up 16 points in this game. They did a really good job. But I was just like, you know what, this is par for the course as far as being a Vikings fan. But I must say, this team finds a new way to even get me riled up, even when I'm trying not to. The game management, the clock management. At the end of the first half, you had the ball, 30 seconds down, 4 points, 2 timeouts left, and you basically take a knee. Say, no, it's all good. We're going to go into the second half and see what happens. I'm like, really? Are you serious? What are you doing? And then, if I'm not mistaken, the first possession in the second half, all of a sudden you want to get aggressive on 4th and 1, and you throw to Laquan Treadwell. Now, Laquan Treadwell, he has played well the last couple of weeks. I'll give him that. But in that crucial position, you don't throw it to Laquan Treadwell. And then what really ticked me off the most, the final score where they finally got a touchdown late in the fourth quarter, they had the ball with about 9.5 minutes left. Down 3 scores, about 17 points, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. They just trotted up that field as if they were going for the game-winning touchdown. That was pathetic. There was zero sense of urgency with this team. I don't understand why this team continuously do stuff like that. It's like, and Manny, you were kind of talking about this with Kirk Cousins. I would say this even for the whole team. If things aren't going well, whereas we're just out the gate just playing well and just off to a great footing, then it's like if we have to try to suddenly come back, this team just falls apart. So they need to get it together. I expected them to lose, and quite honestly, in prime time, that's where all the goofy stuff happens. So I'm not surprised at the missed kick or anything like that, but that clock management is what really fired me up when I was really trying to be positive out here for everybody else. So that's all I got to say on that.
Boom. Randy in Oakland. Realistic Randy,
Fantastic.
one of our favorite callers. I'm going to list off some stats here that are going to, if you let's say you were watching the World Series tonight, I'm just read me the box score of this Vikings game when it's all over. I think
I know where you're going with this.
Like if I were to tell you, I'm not going to give you the final score. I'm just going to start reading some of these stats off. It is very 2009 NFC Championship game like, okay?
Yeah.
Total yards. Now, total yards are a little bit of a sham because garbage time. I mean, hell, the Vikings drove down and had some garbage yards there. But total yards, Vikings 423, Saints 270. Mm-hmm. Yards per play is more accurate because that tells you who was really moving the ball on a per play basis. Vikings, 6.3 yards per play in this game. Mm-hmm. Saints weren't terrible, but 5.1. That's a pretty large gap. If you look at offenses in the NFL, the best offenses and the worst offenses, it might be like a 2 yard per play gap up and down the league right now. First downs, Vikings, 27 first downs. Saints, 17. Drew Brees, okay? Drew Brees, mostly dink and dunk in this game tonight. 120 yards on 23 pass attempts, an average of 5 yards per attempt, and an interception. I believe that was his first interception of the entire season.
It was, yeah.
Okay, and they were getting destroyed by 3 scores in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So turnovers, missed opportunities. They missed a fourth down opportunity at midfield at one point. So that's effectively a turnover that gives the Saints a short field, right?
Yep.
And those two things, and then the swing, not just the turnover, but the Adam Thielen turnover that we already talked about. That wasn't just turn the ball over. It was that's maybe a 14-point swing when it's all said and done. So
yeah, to Randy's point too about the fourth down play, the 4th and 1 on the throw to Treadwell that was broken up. I mean, I just. First of all, let me say I have no problem with going for it on 4th down there. I mean, you got to think, okay, with this quarterback and these receivers, you got to think, okay, yeah, your chances of converting that. And, and Latavius Murray at that point was running the ball pretty well. So you're thinking, okay, the likelihood of them picking up a first down here is pretty high because it's 4th and 1 and you've got weapons on offense. But to have that throw go to Laquan Treadwell on 4th and 1 when you need it. I mean, on 4th and 1, you need that 1 yard. And your play is to Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah. Well, he's on the field, right?
Right.
So, but here's the thing, like you're not going to have 5 amazing receivers, so he's going to be on the field. But that's where you go back to Kirk Cousins after all that's happened this season.
Yeah.
And you're in that spot and it's a big 4th down. And you've got Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, who even when covered, look at Thielen's first catch of the night, for God's sakes. There was a defender up in his grill, and he reaches behind the defender's head and pins the ball to the defender's head. If I have 3 choices, a covered Stephon Diggs, a covered Adam Thielen, or a pretty wide open Laquan Treadwell, but the ball is like 15, 20 yards down the field.
And he wasn't really even that open. I mean, he was covered.
Well, and the defender comes in and knocks the ball away.
Yeah.
But how often do you see that with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, where it's a tight window, defender gets a hand on the ball, and they still hang on to it? Well, Treadwell went, 2 things. Number one, Treadwell doesn't have great hands, but when's the last time you saw Treadwell with any kind of separation? He's always got defenders draped all over him. We were joking off the air. I mean, he's the guy driving 42 miles an hour on a freeway. Like, you can't help but rear end him, for God's sakes. Of course you're going to commit pass interference.
I just feel like in that particular situation, and this was an empty backfield. Cousins was in the shotgun. I have to relook at the play and see exactly the personnel, but empty backfield, you've got 5 receiving options in that particular situation, right? How does Treadwell end up being the option there? Like, you're telling me that Diggs, Thielen, maybe Aldrick Robinson was out there. Rudolph was probably out there, I would think. And, I would trust all 4 of those guys before I would trust Laquan Treadwell to make that play.
Yeah.
And he ended up being the target. I don't get it.
Sometimes it's like, I don't know how much to put on Cousins in that spot, but because the play worked. I mean, he had a route. Receiver got both hands on the
Cousins
ball.
threw it right to him.
But I almost feel like he lacks some sort of situational chip where, okay, there's certain situations that I'm okay to throw the ball to Laquan Treadwell. 2nd down and 8 in the first quarter, I can throw the ball to Laquan Treadwell. 4th down, as the game gets further along, in a must-score drive situation, and 4 other receivers on the field, let's just let Laquan occupy a defender or two and throw to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Let's go to Eric in Bismarck. You're up next on Vikings Vent Line, powered by Lucky's 13.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Tonight was just difficult to watch because I felt like after the Thielen fumble, which, yes, that was on him, but, how well has he played all season? He's bound to have one mistake. After the Thielen fumble, it just seemed like they were playing with the energy or the spirit of Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. Everything just went downhill. It was a boring game, really.
What? Wait, it was a boring game?
It was just, there was no energy. I mean, when you're in the second half and you're down 3 scores and the clock management, we're just nonchalant. We're just dragging ourselves down the field. There was no excitement. There was no get up and go with anything. No, I thought it was a boring game. I mean, when you're getting blown out like that, I wasn't entertained by this tonight.
All right. Well, it's Eric in Bismarck, 651-646-8255. I thought it was obviously it got a little out of hand in the fourth quarter, and if you're a Vikings fan, it wasn't fun to watch in the fourth quarter. But, Jonathan, Manny, would you have considered there's a 3-hour game. The first 2 hours and 30 minutes of that game, would you have classified that as boring?
No, I was fantastically entertained by that.
Think about all the things that you saw in that game, for God's sakes.
I was entertained. I mean, obviously it's not if you're a Vikings fan, it's not the result you wanted, but I mean, to me, I'll be honest with you. I was really impressed with the Vikings defense tonight. Really impressed with the Vikings defense tonight. Drew Brees had 120 yards passing. Okay, this game was not
all of it
Vikings.
Underneath.
Yeah, all of it was dump offs and check downs, and Michael Thomas, who made a couple of nice catches in the game, but really wasn't much of a factor at all. I thought the defense played really well, considering this is one of the all-time, probably one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks to ever lace them up. And the defense, for the most part, shut down the Saints. It was just bad mistakes, turnovers, and just bad decisions by the offense that ended up costing them the game.
Mike in Burnsville, you're up next with Manny Hill and Phil Mackey.
Hey guys, I've never been a huge one play loses a game kind of guy, but the Thielen play was as close to it as it could get if it does exist. And he is a great wide receiver and an unbelievable story. But for people with somewhat of a memory, if you remember a couple of years ago, the big fumble against Dallas last year at the end of the game against Detroit at home, and tonight, I mean, when he craps the bed, he craps the bed. But like I said, you can't. He is human, and he's going to make some mistakes. And I personally think next week, and I'm not after only 8 games, have to win, but I think next week is a must win. If you look, they're going to be playing New England and Chicago and Green Bay right after the bye. I think they have to win next week.
Well, let's put it at let's talk about that. Mike in Burnsville brings up a good point here. I'm not going to say it's a must-win game, but let's start to do some number crunching here, because now the Bears move back ahead of you by a half game in the standings, and the Packers lost to the Rams. The Packers are 3-3-1, so you've got a game on the Packers with another game to play against them here in a few weeks. I think you have to get to 9 wins to feel like you have a decent chance to win this division. 9-6-1 feels like I don't know if the Bears are going to go 10-6. The Packers would then, depending on tiebreakers, Packers to get to 9-6-1. Like 9-6-1 feels like a pretty safe spot to have a chance to win the division and or get into a wild card spot. And that means you need 5 more wins from this point out. Well, Lions at home, okay, that's 1. So you need 4 more wins out of these games, okay? At Chicago, not a gimme, especially with Khalil Mack will be back by then.
Because it's never been a gimme at Soldier Field.
Correct. Home against Green Bay, not a gimme. Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers almost just went into Los Angeles and won that game. If not for Ty Montgomery having a complete brain malfunction,
right,
taking a kick out of the end zone, taking the ball out of Aaron Rodgers, they needed a field goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Rodgers was warming up to come in the game because he's Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
At New England, not a gimme. In fact, chalk it up probably as a loss.
Yeah.
At Seattle, not the same Seattle team, but that's
still a tough place
game.
to play, man. Yeah.
Home against Miami, at Detroit, and then home against Chicago. So if you need 5 wins to get to 9-6-1, and you beat Detroit twice, Miami at home, that leaves you with two more games against Chicago. I mean, that's so. If you don't win this game against the Lions and 9-6-1 is the record, can you get one back by stealing one against New England or Seattle? So, yeah.
You're probably going to have to.
Mathematically, it's pretty close to a must-win there. Chancey and Fargo, go ahead, man.
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. Minus the Diggs stopping on the route play and the Thielen fumble, this game really had the full checklist of all the Vikings nitpicks or problems, that you see every week and whether they win or lose. I mean, I'll go right through them. You go, missed extra point or field goal, check. Cousins batted down passes at the line, check. Offensive line giving up too much pressure. Yeah, Elfline's getting trucked and Hill's getting run around, check. You got linebackers trying to either cover tight ends or running backs. I see Kendricks falling and chasing Kamara over the field, so you got that, check. It's just the usual string of things that are all kind of mounting up. And what happens is when you play a good team, a 5-1 team, and 2 other things happen, and granted they were huge, but your best players don't step up, you're going to lose that game. And I said to my boy sitting on the couch for the game, he goes, Dad, do you think the Vikings are one of the best teams in the NFC? And I said, well, this game will kind of tell it. I said, if they beat the Saints here, you can probably say, yeah, they're running. They're looking for maybe a first-round bye, and they're going to be pushing hard. Now it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, they're looking like you guys just ran through that schedule. And one thing I noticed, it's a little bit maybe off topic for some of the things you guys are talking about, but watching Kendricks chase around Kamara, it made me really kind of start to miss Dalvin Cook a little bit. I just thought, that pass catching back out of the backfield would be a big help for the Vikings. And Murray's good as far as just going up the middle and getting 3 yards and running straight downhill, but he doesn't bring much out of the backfield. And man, I would like to see Cook back in the lineup and see what that'll add. And I'd also like to see a safety chasing the running backs from now on. It seemed like when they put Curse on Kamara, that kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Kendricks can't cover running backs on the backfield. So that's it, guys. But it's going to be a dogfight. So hang on to your horses here.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Chancey. Manny, let's do this. Let's squeeze in a quick break here and do our final segment of Vikings Vent Line and take calls from Bob and Osseo. And we have a few open phone lines right now, too. We're also streaming live on Twitter/Periscope. 651-646-8255, 877-615-1500, Manny Hill.
Yeah, and Lucky's 13th Pub is powering Vikings Vent Line. And Lucky's has you covered for the best game day experience. Tons of TVs, legendary appetizers, and those amazing fresh half-pound burgers. They also have handcrafted sandwiches, too, which are fantastic. Wide variety of many other pub favorites. And I'll tell you what, the drink menu is awesome, too. They've got a huge selection of tap beer, handcrafted cocktails, the best Bloody Marys in town. Seriously, these Bloodies are awesome. You can try the Bacon Bloody, the Jalapeno Bloody, the Mother Mary. Or if you want to try them all, you can get a flight and sample each one of them. Lucky's, they celebrate Sunday Fun Day, happy hour all day long on Sunday, every single Sunday. They have events and prize giveaways during games too. Lucky's, they have locations in Bloomington, Burnsville, Mendota, Plymouth, and Roseville. And if you can't make it out to Lucky's to hang out there, if you want to have people over for the game, even on Sundays, you can call ahead, and Lucky's, they will get what you want ready for you, and they'll be ready to go when you come and pick them up and bring them home. And if you got people over for the game, they'll appreciate that. So you can find them online at luckys13pub.com, online at luckys13pub.com.
Replacement windows. Not in your budget this year? Well, what if you could save 20%? Renewal by Andersen, full service replacement window division of Andersen, are putting windows back in your budget with this exclusive podcast only offer. You know how much I love this and what a difference it makes. You owe it to yourself, people. You save 20% on windows, 20% on patio doors, an additional $20 on every window. Don't settle for low-end vinyl windows. Renewal by Anderson's composite Fibrex window material is 2 times stronger than vinyl, and you can save 20% on windows and patio doors, plus an additional $20 off each and every window with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. The air conditioning works better. It's so much quieter. The heater's better. Everything is better. Dust is down. So for a free renewal by Anderson Windows Diagnosis, call 1-800-406-8700. Again, 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. Dawson.
Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
The show solely devoted to your reaction on the game. Vikings Vent Line now continues.
Trying to pull off the 2-for-1 score at the end of the half and get the ball to start the third quarter. Pass caught by Thielen. And he launches the ball at the 13-yard line. And it's picked up. If it's a live ball, and it appears to be at this particular point, you got Lattimore coming the other way, and he'll take it to the 32-yard line. Rudolph comes into the slot. Cousins looking, throwing, and that will be Stephon Diggs, touchdown. 3rd and 5. And somehow, someway, that is caught by Adam Thielen. I mean, he gets everything. Oh, man. He reaches over P.J. Williams and somehow comes away with it.
I love this comment in our Periscope feed because we all took note of this too. Jaron Kearse was out there shadowing Alvin Kamara in the second half. And at Minnesota Sooner chimes into the comment section. Kearse got taken for a 15-foot ride by Kamara on that swing play out to the right. Better get back in the weight room. Do you remember that? It's like, oh, man, he's in great position to make a tackle here. And Kamara drove him backwards about 8 yards, almost got a first down.
Let me tell you something. This is why, and Vikings fans are going to be probably mad at me for saying this because I'm praising a player on another team, but
and you're wearing a Tennessee hooded sweatshirt,
and I'm wearing a Tennessee
and it's
hooded
on
sweatshirt.
camera right now
yes,
too,
it is,
so you can't hide.
Rocky
You're like
top,
Judd wearing a Blackhawk sweatshirt every other day in the studio.
But this is why I I love Dalvin Cook. When he's healthy, I love Dalvin Cook, but I was kind of hoping the Vikings would find a way to get Alvin Kamara in the draft, just because watching him at Tennessee, this guy he's not huge, but he's tough. He's physical. He will absorb a hit. He's fast. He plays with instinct. He's fantastic, man, and he's going to be good for a long time. And he's not showing any signs of injury right now. So I love the kid. He's great.
Yeah, I know one way for Jaron Kearse to put on some weight. You know what? Go get some of those appetizers at Lucky's 13 Pubs. They're powering Vikings Vent Line all year. If you want to put on some bulk, I'm sure you can find some stuff, some calories to put in your body. 5 metro locations and live Purple podcast tapings throughout the season. You can check the schedule on 1500ESPN.com. Final segment to get your calls in here with Manny Hill, Phil Mackey, 651-646-8255, 877-615-1500. Let's go to Bob and Osseo. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Phil. It's actually Bob, formerly of Osseo. I'm the first caller in the history of Vikings Vent Line.
Wow.
Going back to 2012, 2013. It's on my LinkedIn. I just wanted to comment on something Randy said. Cousins threw the ball to Lattimore a lot. When he went to Treadwell, Lattimore was on him. It seemed like in the first half we were drawing penalties against Apple and P.J. Williams, and then we just completely went away from it. And I felt like Zim got out-coached. Rush 4 against Drew Brees, get a linebacker on their running backs. I know it's not ideal to have Kearse on there all the time, but they were just dinking and dunking. That's why Brees didn't have the numbers. Hope you guys have a good night.
Bob, thank you for the call, and thank you for helping us christen Vikings Vent Line 6 years ago. We appreciate that. See, I don't think Mike Zimmer got out-coached.
Not at all.
I think the Vikings made idiot mistakes in situations where you can't. A pick six and a critical fumble by Adam Thielen. It's Stephon Diggs, by the way, fell on the grenade and totally owned that interception return for a touchdown. Was it for a touchdown or did they just get into scoring range? I blacked out halfway through. Yeah, it was a pick six.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Unless you can talk me off of this, I don't come away from that game thinking, oh man, Sean Payton ran circles around Mike Zimmer. I think Mike Zimmer came with a pretty good game plan, and the Vikings ran up and down the field for over 400 yards of offense and shot themselves in the foot just like they did 9 years ago against the same Saints coach, Sean Payton, in the NFC Championship game.
Listen, the quarterback who has thrown for more yards than anyone else in the history of this game threw for 120 yards tonight. Drew Brees had 120 yards passing tonight.
And his first pick of the season.
Defense was not the issue tonight.
Yeah, if you were to ask Drew Brees,
not the problem for the Vikings tonight at all.
What have they played? They played 8 games, 7 games. The Saints, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to ask Drew Brees, what's the most grinded out game you've had in terms of surveying a defense all night for 3 hours? I guarantee you, he would have said this one tonight. I mean, Everson Griffin was back in the mix, not the full Everson Griffin that we know. But he was being harassed. It was a lot of dink and dunk. They weren't taking shots down the field because the Vikings were playing 2 safeties. I saw smarter people than I am who spot this stuff instantaneously. Like Sage Rosenfels was tweeting. The Vikings essentially said, we're going to take away the passing game by putting 2 safeties back in center field, and we're going to stop the run with the front 4 and linebackers.
I thought the defense played really well tonight.
Yeah.
I thought they played really well tonight. And if the Vikings would have won this game because they didn't have Thielen's fumble and Diggs boneheadedly stopping on his route, then we'd be talking about how great the defense was today and how they shut down Drew Brees. And I never would have imagined that Drew Brees would have only thrown for 120 yards tonight. Never would have imagined that.
Yeah, and he threw 25 passes, so but it was only 5 yards per attempt. So just a ton of dink and dunk. Is it Talon in St. Paul?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man? You're on Vikings Vent Line.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron and Nordo.
Say it again?
Talon.
Yeah, go ahead. You're on Vikings Vent Line, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Good to talk to you guys. You know what? Everything I can put together about this game, Drew Brees, 120 pass yards, first interception, and how many passes? Unbelievable game. At the end, they had they kind of fell apart at crucial moments, and that was a little bit upsetting. But, the offense played fantastic, and I can really only blame this game on 3 points, 3 mistakes. Good teams lose to really big teams in big games for these mistakes that they've made. My question more than just this game is, what do you guys think about us going forward as far as, let's say we play the Rams again, say we play the Saints again, let's say we do have a healthy team, what is going to be that difference next time we play one of these teams that just really puts it to us, almost, I don't want to say puts a perfect game towards us, but puts a complete game towards us? What's going to make us that better team? Yeah,
Talon, thank you for the call. I have a hot take.
Okay.
I still think the Vikings can win the Super Bowl. But in games like this, and I would put the Rams in a similar category, not of having a legendary quarterback, but it's pretty unlikely that Drew Brees is just going to give you 3 mistakes. I mean, you're not going to walk into a game if there's a tail of the tape, and one of the measurements is how likely mistakes in this game. Drew Brees starts at 0.5. He may or may not even commit one major error. Now tonight he did. He threw it. He got flustered and airmailed Michael Thomas and threw an interception, his first of the year.
Yep.
And so you would have thought, man, if the Vikings are going to have the yardage advantage and they're going to have the first down advantage and Thielen and Diggs are both going to go over 100 and Drew Brees is going to throw an interception, you would have thought game, set, match, right? There's no way the Vikings lose in that scenario. So I think it's about, if you play these teams again in the playoffs and you're going to play New England, so you're going to have another one of these big-time litmus tests.
Mm-hmm.
You know that Kirk Cousins has it in him to make mistakes. And if it's going to be like Kirk Cousins against Tom Brady or Kirk Cousins against Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, he's almost certainly going to make at least one or two mistakes that those other guys don't make. And I would put the Rams offense, because it's so well choreographed and so well orchestrated.
Yeah.
If everything else around Kirk Cousins plays up to its capability without making mistakes, you can overcome it. You can overcome the fact that Cousins' brain malfunctions like 3 times per night, along with the big-time throws. And tonight, his 2 best wide receivers, one of them cut off a route, the other one fumbled in a big spot. So if those guys don't do that, the Vikings probably win this game.
Oh, I don't think there's any question they win the game. I mean, if you take away, you can even factor in, some sort of a butterfly effect that if what happened with Thielen, if Thielen doesn't fumble that ball and it's returned back 50 yards or whatever the hell it was that set up that touchdown before the half for the Saints, I mean, who's to say that the pick six even happens later on, because maybe that situation, the game situation is different at that point of the game, maybe, and maybe that play isn't called, and then Diggs doesn't stop on his route, and that that sort of thing. So I agree with you. I think that this team, especially with the defense playing a lot better in the last few weeks, and what were we saying going up to this week was the last couple of weeks against the Jets and the Cardinals, 2 rookie quarterbacks, and you're like, okay, defense played well, but it was against rookie quarterbacks. This against Drew Brees was going to be the real test. And the defense showed up tonight. So I think if this defense can get back to at least some resemblance of how dominant it was last year, even considering all the injuries they have right now, I think this team is still in pretty good shape to go on a run. But they just got to limit the mistakes. They just have to stop the mistakes, man.
Yeah, Rob in Seattle chiding me here in the comment section of Periscope. Please, Phil, Vikings can win the Super Bowl. You just like to hear yourself talk. That's okay. No, I mean, I'm not saying that they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl or that they are likely to win the Super Bowl. I'm saying they've gone through a lot of stuff already this season, and they've made some pretty big mistakes against the best teams that they've played. Mm-hmm. And yet they're still sitting here with, I would say, the best chance to win the division. They're still sitting here with a defense that was the best in the NFL last year with most of the same components. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to be the best week 1 through week 17 defense collectively. You just have to get back to playing peak level defense at some point, crescendoing into the playoffs. And I think they have a better quarterback now, even though we've talked about his flaws. He's a better quarterback than they had in Case Keenum last year. And Adam Thielen has had this ridiculous season. I mean, if the Vikings made a run in January, even if it meant winning a couple games on the road, and you're shocked by the prospect of that, then maybe you don't watch enough football.
We've seen, how many teams, Phil, have we seen just in the last decade go all the way to the Super Bowl as a 9-7 or 10-6 team because they get hot, they catch fire? Mm-hmm. The Ravens in 2012 caught fire. Joe Flacco was a mediocre quarterback.
Yeah,
that's
Giants.
What everybody was saying. And then all of a sudden, Joe Flacco just turns on the Jets and he gets hot for 4 games in the playoffs, and they win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, is it likely? Probably not, but I think it's a possibility. I think this team has enough to do it. It's just, whether it happens or not, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people hear, it's like Rob in Seattle heard me say the Vikings are going to beat Tom Brady by 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. I said, no, there's probably 7, maybe 8 teams that can win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Patriots, Saints. I'm trying to think of other AFC teams because I don't know about this either. I guess Kansas City's defense makes me nervous, but if I have the Vikings in that category, I have Kansas City too. Mm-hmm. Rams, and the Vikings would be like 7 or 8 on that list, and I would put them in that category. So it's not that much of a hot take, I guess. Stoneman in Ohio, you're on Vikings Vent Line.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Huge fan of the show.
Dude, thanks for listening.
Greetings from Massillon, Ohio. Victor's the greatest rivalry in high school football, by the way. Sorry, I just want to throw that out there.
Cool. Plug away.
You guys can't tell me. Drew Brees threw for 120 yards, and the Saints didn't have 300 yards of offense. Do you think we had any chance of losing this game?
No.
And a few other things. I mean, clearly mistakes cost us. I got a couple concerns. Coaching concerns, and Realistic Randy, I think, talked about it. The time management, especially when you're down by 3 scores in the fourth quarter against Brees and the Saints, and they're huddling up. I was baffled by that. The other thing I was baffled by is Kendricks is still covering Kamara. Didn't we learn about that in the playoff game last year? I'm pretty sure Kamara beat him on a touchdown in a big play in that game. And long-term future as far as players, I'm concerned about Cousins. Has been great. I mean, you can't deny that. But him in big plays or in big games kind of concerns me. I mean, he got a huge break in the Packers game. We got some breaks in the Eagles game. But today, against the Rams that fumbled at the end of the game, I guess I'm just concerned if he can win us a game against a big team. And long-term, too, guys, Latavius Murray's been great. Do you think we're better off with him than Dalvin Cook? Or do you think we're better off with both? I'm sure we're probably better off with both, but it's just something to think about. And you guys just talked about the playoffs in the end. Man, what a daunting road now, because now we're going to have to go through New Orleans and L.A. It's going to be a tough task.
That is, sorry to cut you off, Stoneman. We'll get to a couple more calls. So let's answer the running back question here.
Yeah, this is a tough one to answer because Dalvin Cook, when he's healthy, I think is really, really good. The problem is we are, 16 plus, we're 8 games into
24?
24 games.
He's played like 7?
He's played like 6 or 7 games. I mean, you have to start thinking, and, last year was the ACL, so you just kind of, once you get one injury that just wipes out your season, basically. But the hamstring thing this year is you just have to wonder if, I don't know. It's hard to, they need him. I mean, if he's there and he's healthy, he makes them a much better offense. But part of being a good player is being available, being healthy and being available. And Latavius Murray, to his credit, might not be a better running back than Dalvin Cook, but he's been healthy and he's been available.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. It's a good question.
It's weird because in the NFL right now, you're seeing some guys who, when they're the starter and they're out there, Dalvin Cook in the handful of games we've seen him has just looked different. He's looked next level, especially in the pre-ACL tear games. And then you see his backup come in, and it's okay. And even like the other backups, Rock Thomas, and like these guys can run a little bit too. It's happening in Pittsburgh right now too. Le'Veon Bell goes away. Well, guess what? His backup just went for like 230 combined yards today and a bunch of touchdowns. So I don't know. Systems are different in the NFL today, and I think if you're a guy like Le'Veon Bell or Dalvin Cook, and you thought you had some value, whether it's your choice to sit out or whether it's not, it's an interesting time to be a running back in the NFL. Let's go to David in Minneapolis. You're on Vikings Vent Line. David?
Hey, good evening. After Thielen fumbled it, were you guys at all surprised how long before they actually targeted him again? Because like Laquan Treadwell, has the boneheaded play in Green Bay, but they try to come back to him right away. And I mean, most Vikings fans didn't even want to see the guy back in the field, but it seemed like it took a really long time before Thielen was even targeted in the game today. And then how much do you think that the death of Tony Sperano contributed to like just kind of the delay of the running game finally gelling here a little bit?
It's so hard on the Tony Sperano front.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only thing I would say is you can't lose someone who you're that close to and who's that important, not only from a professional standpoint, but just what people said about him personally.
Yeah.
You can't have something like that be ripped from you and have it not matter, right?
Yeah. Plus, on top of that, I think we're just, with the offensive line, they're looking at a situation where there's not the ideal talent that you want on the offensive line right now. I mean, you have a backup at left tackle right now. You've got a still developing right tackle playing right now. You had a backup at left guard tonight. Elfline's been, Elfline is there, so Elfline's fine. But, and then you have Mike Remmers at right guard, and Mike Remmers is probably more so of a tackle than he is a guard. I mean, he's been okay at guard, but Mike Remmers is a tackle. He's a right tackle, and they have him playing right guard right now. So I think it's just a situation where, I mean, obviously the Sperano thing, I think, really hit this organization really hard. But I think with the offensive line, you're still dealing with just a shortage on talent. They need healthy talent. They need Riley Reif back and healthy, and they need they need to upgrade at left guard this offseason. However they may be able to do it, whether it's in the draft or free agency. I mean, this is why we were talking about them needing to draft an interior lineman in the draft, and they didn't do it. So that's kind of the situation that they're in right now with the offensive line, and that's just the way this is what they have to deal with now for the rest of the season.
You are listening, by the way, to AM 1500 ESPN Twin Cities. It's KSTP Minneapolis St. Paul, and we're going to let Travis in Southern California have the final word here on Vikings Vent Line, powered by Lucky's 13. Hey, Travis.
Hey, guys. How you doing, man?
We're doing all right.
I have 3 points here. Okay?
All right.
Okay, we're going to go on the latest one right now, okay, with the running back and everything. Latavius Murray is definitely the best running back for the running game at this time with the condition of our offensive line. Okay, he's a bigger person than Dalvin Cook or Rock or anybody else. Okay, so you have to stick with the guy. He's going to at least bolt through that first tackle, and he's going to break one, and then he gets in the backfield. He'll be all right on that. But Dalvin Cook gets hit right away at the front. Okay, that's not that good. Okay? Number 2, the Vikings, we lost to the Saints, we lost to the Rams. Okay? I'm not afraid to meet either one of those later on if we make the playoffs. They have to make the playoffs because they're going to end up having to beat, at least take 3 out of the 4 between the Bears and the Lions in order to make the playoffs. Okay? And if they make the playoffs, I think they can go up head-to-head against the Saints like they did tonight. They go head-to-head against the Rams like they did before. Okay? And the other point was the Bismarck caller earlier in the night said, the game was boring. Well, when you give up, 2 turnovers, what the Vikings did were the game changers. What the heck is going to happen to your team? You're just going to go. You're going to go down. And the Saints are just going to go straight up. And so I'm not too worried about the Vikings. I'm not worried about Treadwell. I'm not worried about anyone else like that. I think if they can maintain, they can get people back healthy, they'll be good. And like I said, I'd run with Latavius Murray the rest of the year in the running back, even with Dalvin Cook there.
Travis in Southern California, thank you for the phone call. I don't know. I guess my lasting message would be, you would like to have seen the Vikings beat the Rams. You'd like to have seen them finish off that game against the Packers and or beat the Saints in this one. I think winning in Philadelphia was an accomplishment. Well, Philadelphia is not quite the same team as they were last year. But at the same time, like people are taking some of these games and using them as the written in stone version of what the Vikings are going forward. They've put themselves in a spot, if they take care of business against the Lions next week, 5-3-1 going into the bye with the slate that you knew was going to be tough at the beginning of the year. Let's go all the way back to August and say, you know what? Let's just fast forward to the bye week. 5-3-1. Would you take it? Most people would have said, you know what? Yeah, it's tough to bounce back from a whooping like that in the NFC Championship game. And just some of the things, whether it's Tony Sperano or changing quarterbacks and chemistry and things like that. 5-3 now. If they lose to the Lions, okay, then it's a different conversation. But 5-3-1, and obviously have to make some improvements defensively and have Kirk Cousins cut down on some of the malfunctions of his brain during these games. But I don't know. I guess I'm not standing on a ledge like some of our callers were tonight.
I think if they get to the end of the season and if the Vikings are finished 9-6-1 and the Packers somehow get hot and they finish 10-5-1 and the Packers end up winning the division because of that, I think the one game that people will be looking at is the Buffalo game.
Yep, that's totally fair.
It's the Buffalo game. And that to me is still, like tonight, there were things that bugged me about tonight with things that happened in Cousins and then the turnovers by Diggs and Thielen and that, that they were responsible for. Those things bothered me, but I'm not as worked up about them losing tonight because this was, when I looked at the schedule, this was a game that I thought, they'd probably end up losing this game. Or they could lose this game and it's not that big of a deal. But the Buffalo game, man, that one is never going to go away, unfortunately.
I sensed just based on the Saints' energy tonight. One of the callers brought up energy, and that was actually Eric and Bismarck that brought it up. But it felt like the Saints wanted this game. This is so cliche, but
they wanted more.
But it sort of felt like they knew they should have won that game to go to the NFC Championship game, if not for a miracle, a literal miracle play. And but that's also an indictment on the Vikings. Know that that's going to be the case, and come in and don't shoot yourself in the foot 3 times.
Exactly.
So we're going to be back tomorrow. Mackey and Judd, 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock. For Manny Hill, at Manny Hill 84 on Twitter. Thank you to all you guys watching on Twitter and Periscope. Jonathan Harrison, I'm Phil Mackey, and thanks to Lucky's 13 Pubs as well. It's Vikings Vent Line. You can find it on demand, and you can find the rerun on our Periscope page too, at 1500 ESPN. We'll see you guys later.
Replacement windows. Not in your budget this year? Well, what if you could save 20%? Renewal by Andersen, full service replacement window division of Andersen, are putting windows back in your budget with this exclusive podcast only offer. You know how much I love this and what a difference it makes. You owe it to yourself, people. You save 20% on windows, 20% on patio doors, an additional $20 on every window. Don't settle for low-end vinyl windows. Renewal by Andersen's composite Fibrex window material is 2 times stronger than vinyl, and you can save 20% on windows and patio doors, plus an additional $20 off each and every window with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. The air conditioning works better. It's so much quieter. The heater's better. Everything is better. Dust is down. So for a free renewal by Andersen Windows Diagnosis, call 1-800-406-8700. Again, 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. Dawson.
Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
Pipe bomb investigation. Trump blames media. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP Newsminute. Federal authorities arrested a Florida man with a criminal history and was a supporter of President Trump, accusing him of sending at least 13 mail bombs to prominent Democrats and their supporters. FBI Director Christopher Wray says investigators found a key piece of evidence.
They uncovered a latent fingerprint from one of the envelopes containing an IED that had been sent to Congresswoman Maxine Waters. We have confirmed this fingerprint is that of Cesar Sayoc.
Sayoc faces at least 5 federal charges in connection with the investigation. President Trump, at a political rally in Charlotte, North Carolina, praised the investigation and denounced the media coverage of the pipe bomb mailings.
We have seen an effort by the media in recent hours to use the sinister actions of one individual to score political points against me and the Republican Party.
I'm Tim McGuire.